Good afternoon. I'm F13 author Ariana Bleyker, author of Dark Water and Red Hands. Today I'll be reading to you from Chapter 4 of Red Hands, where we meet Garrison Harper and a little bit more intimate part of his mind. If you've read Red Hands before, you know who Garrison is. If you haven't, this will give you a little bit of taste of where he is as our protagonist, as our serial killer who's a little bit mentally ill. Chapter 4. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Wright asked. Garrison sat at one end of a long wooden table. Dr. Wright sat at the opposite end. Nurses, medical students, social workers, and attendants filled the other seats. Garrison mused. He knew it was a common question, a necessary question, not merely a social nicety. The doctor was sincere and genuine, not the enemy. None of the people in the room were his enemy. He believed they had good intentions, that they could help despite feeling that they were delusioned. Maybe delusioned wasn't the right word. They were misinformed, no ignorant to his situation. Garrison wasn't crazy, though he wasn't sure that's how every patient felt. He knew it was the truth. Sure, he may have been a bit eccentric, but that was no crime and not a reason to be involuntarily committed. He talked fast, thought fast, and although Dr. Wright interpreted this as erratic thought, Garrison knew he was always lucid, logical, and sane. The incident that happened in the supermarket wasn't his fault, though he carried the guilt. He had been drawn to the scissors, the red handle. He remembered picking up the package and how good it felt to hold. Remembered walking to the checkout and waiting in the most crowded line. He waited patiently, stood there calmly, and stared off ahead of him. He could almost feel the plastic ripping from the cardboard again as he sat there. He'd taken out the scissors when the clerk greeted him. He remembered smiling back at the clerk, reaching out to hand him the box, and feeling the warmth of his hand. As the clerk reached out to take the box, Garrison gripped his hand and stabbed him in the arm 3 times with the scissors before being tackled and pinned to the ground, his face scraping the floor. Garrison looked up at Dr. Wright. He wasn't scared. He thought of the patients that sat there for hours scratching their arms, not digging their nails in deep or using much force, but their compulsion. He didn't need a doctorate to know that he wasn't sick, that it was others that were fucking crazy. Garrison was sure he wasn't one of them. "Garrison, I asked you a question," Dr. Wright's voice now carried the tone of stern authority. Garrison knew he had to think of something to say, something that didn't make him seem abnormal. His heart began to beat faster. "Sorry," he said to Dr. Wright. Scanning the room, he continued, "Sorry, everyone. I'm just tired. I didn't get a good night's rest last night." Garrison raised his hand to wave and felt the corner of his lips upturned to a defeated smile. "He's only on a 100-milligram dose of trazodone. Perhaps we should raise it to 150 milligrams, the medical student sitting next to him interjected. Garrison scowled at the student. Dr. Wright quickly answered, "That's a good thought, but don't be too quick to dose adjust. There could be many factors for insomnia or restlessness at night. Garrison, does this occur often?" Garrison shook his head. "Was anything bothering you last night?" He shook his head again. "Let's just keep an eye on things and we'll go from there." Yes, Garrison thought. Dr. Wright was wise. His medication list was long. Trazodone, lithium, Lamictal, Abilify, Risperdal. But it was the Klonopin that scared him the most. It changed him. It didn't sedate him. It turned everything stale. "So, Garrison, this brings us to my original question. How are you feeling?" "Bad." Garrison bit the inside of his lip. He didn't mean to utter that word. Dr. Garrison took off his glasses and squinted down at him. "Garrison, what's troubling you?" "Someone is trying to kill me." Dr. Wright half laughed. "Nobody is trying to kill you." "Yes, they are." He cringed at the words that kept falling out of his mouth. "Who? Who is trying to kill you?" "He's in this room." Dr. Wright waved his glasses that were in his hand. "Garrison, I can assure you that nobody in this room wants to kill you." Garrison begged himself to stop. He knew he had to gain control. "Yes, he does. He's sitting right next to me." He turned, raised his finger, and pointed to the medical student. The student froze. Everyone was silent. Garrison chuckled. He couldn't help it. He'd been very hard at work his whole existence and didn't feel the need to stop now. He liked to have fun. He knew the drugs could sedate, but not flush out what they didn't know was there. It was a futile effort. They could call it dissociative identity disorder. They could call it bipolar disorder or schizophrenia if they wanted. They could call it anything they liked. He just called it Garrison. Thank you very much. I hope this has enticed you to possibly want to read Red Hands and or Dark Water. I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.